Small and cozy group. If we just go around the room and introduce ourselves. We got a few new people today. Oh, thank you. So, why don't we start here?
Sure. I'm Leah Goldstein Moses. I've been a member of the EAC for about 5 years now.
We'll go this way here.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Jenkins, and I've been here for a couple years now.
Hi everyone, Lila El-Tuili. I'm the Council's Enterprise Equity Senior Manager. I lead the Equity Implementation Unit, and we support the Equity Advisory Committee.
Hello, I'm Tori Hampton. I work in the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity and the EIU unit, and I support the EAC committee as well.
Hi, Tony Carter, councilperson for District 14 on the Metropolitan Council. I've been on the EAC now for a year.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Tyrone Carter, and I'm not on the EAC, but I'm hoping to be on the EAC. And I came here to support the EAC and to observe and keep my mouth shut so I can learn something today. So I'm the Metro Council member for District 3, and I like to say that my spirit has always been here.
Welcome,
Back there.
Sure. Good evening, my name is Leslie Cadaris and I'm the General Manager of Metro Transit.
Hello, I'm Selena Martina. I use she, her, ella pronouns, and I am the Senior Manager for Equity and Inclusion at Metro Transit. And I sometimes come to these meetings in person, sometimes virtually, so glad to be here.
John's hi.
I'm sorry, that William was back there. Cy Jordan, Director of the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity, here to support certainly the Equity Advisory Committee and more directly our staff, Lila and Tori.
Well, I started out and I didn't introduce myself. And I'm John Pacheco. I'm co-chair of the Equity Advisory Committee. I'm a council member for District 6, which includes about a slice of Edina, 30% or something like that, and then all of Bloomington, Richfield, and over to the airport and to the river. So,
Thank you, everybody. So we'll call the meeting to order. Quorum is currently 10 members.
Maybe not 10 minutes, I guess.
really mind.
Not
Okay.
today.
Actually, why don't I finish this one here, just because I wrote all over it here.
Yes.
And there's two things. First of all, we need to accept the agenda. We really don't have a need to vote on that one in particular, but if there's any other points that people want to make, otherwise I'll assume this is approved and we'll move on. So we'll accept the agenda. Similarly with the minutes today, we don't have quorum to prove them. I hope someone, they've been passed out or been sent out. You can review them, we can accept them, but we really don't, without a quorum, we can't approve them at this point. That brings us,
Can I
Yes.
ask, we did have an email message requesting that we have a conversation about the legislative proposal to move the Met Council to an elected body. And I feel like we should talk about that at this meeting, because by May, the legislative session will be almost over. So if we can just hear a little bit about what's happening, what the council's understanding of that proposal is, that would be great.
okay. All right, well, let's, all right, at this point here, we'll get to it. I won't miss it here. Is that we do have time for the public to speak. You're allowed 3 minutes. We have no one signing up, but just be aware that we do have that opportunity. There are people who watch this online, and so they're reminded that they could come here or even send something in and let us discuss it. So I don't want to miss it just because we won't have it here at this point. And similarly, with the reports from the subcommittees, we are now in the process, and we'll speak to this in announcements, of reviewing applicants and getting approvals for more members here. So at this point, we don't have a significant number to really break it out into subcommittees. But we don't want them to go away. They're in our bylaws, and so we clearly, once we get up to the capacity of 21 members, we do have the ability to add subcommittees, which would be very helpful. Otherwise, sometimes you come here 1 month and you remember by the next month. But having a committee specifically around something like what you mentioned, which are key important ones, that's something we would do as well. And actually, before I jump into the presentation, I'll just respond to what I know is very limited. We haven't had a full report on it. There was a committee established last year to look at the makeup of the Met Council. And the question was, should it be elected? Because there's some question of you're not accountable, as they would say, if you're not elected. It's taxation without representation. And the others is maybe having a separate system. So it could be you were elected, but you were the mayor of Medina. You could be on this one here because you were technically elected by a body. The public had some input, and so that was one other thing. So the committee that was made up with legislators and some appointments came up with like 6 different recommendations. The ones I've been hearing more lately are maybe taking the major projects like light rail and move them over to the MnDOT. There's again some others that I'm not aware of. So far, I haven't heard anything from the committees. They definitely are going to do something before the end of the year, but it's not something we get involved in. So we, even as members, we're not asked our opinion on it. And so they've got their recommendations. They can do whatever they want to do. Because they couldn't come up with just a solid one recommendation and passed about 6, there's 6 of them, it's going to be hard. They got to get through all the committees to really do something like this. And this is not the first time that this has been reviewed. It was been studied in the past, and years ago when I was here, 30 years ago, they had a similar issue. So that's what I know. We haven't had a full briefing from our legislators for the council members. And we get highlights of, we have a number of, obviously because of the nature of our business here, we are on most committees. And so our lobbying team is very active and they send us updates. But right now, I haven't seen one specific to this makeup. I don't know if anybody else has something to add to that. All right.
Report.
Yes.
Are there equity implications that this body should be aware of in terms of either keeping things the way they are, moving to elected? Like what should members of the EAC be understanding so that as our members of our communities are talking to us or as we're interacting with legislators, we're more informed?
First, I'd say is that basically we are at the whim, if they call it that, of the governor. We're all governor's appointments, and they appoint it all at the same time. And so, again, that was another one where we used to go to staggered terms. Therefore, there's a move. In regards to equity, right now we have the most diverse council that's ever been in place, and I think you don't want to break that up if you could avoid it. But it's not something that's I think top of mind. It's really about administration. And from what I understand, the governor's waiting to see what it would look like. Because most governors, these are great appointments. And they can really, his one Minnesota agenda can be carried out with a group like this here that has the skill sets and background and history and diversity with the body that we have in place. I think it's we'd certainly like to keep that, but there's no kind of line that would say we have a role or we're as council members involved in this selection or in in the makeup. To go back, like I said, I was here on this body 30 years ago as a purpose appointment. And so they really want to put their ownership on these. And so every so often we have it up, but I don't, it's not I don't want to repeat myself, but it's, equity is something that'll be measured and appointed by whoever the governor is, right, during that time. And so, I came out of a system the first time where if you were a Democrat or Republican, whoever your Senate district was, would have more say on that than they do today. It was, and the advisory committee, I had to go before the advisory committee as well. But that's, again, 30 years ago, I don't think they would change it that much. But is there something specific, maybe?
I guess, well, I don't have a lot of background. I know how the council is currently appointed. So I was curious kind of what the proposals are and how the council is thinking about them and reflecting. My question about equity is I do appreciate that the current council is very diverse, and I appreciate that participation by the current council members. I think that because that is so dependent on who the governor is, that won't always be the case. And I do wonder if as an equity advisory committee, our stance would be that an elected body has higher chance of being perpetually diverse because it's representing the communities that it likely would be district apportioned, so would represent the community's interests and priorities and values and who's sitting on the council versus whoever the governor happens to be at the time. But I don't know if staff have a perspective of that or other council members.
I was just going to say there are so many creations, different possibilities that are in discussion. It feels very much like the past 30 years, of discussion. At this point, there really isn't anything to date that I've been able to see as the possibility that will arrive. And I have not, as a council member, because I have no say in it whatsoever, I've been really very careful to just try to do this business, to focus in on the work at hand, which is great, and which we have the opportunity to impact today, whether we're talking about housing or transportation or climate change or equity, all of the areas of work that we support. So it's been intensive to do that work. I have not, quite honestly, been able to track and pay attention to this. As far as my opinion is concerned, when I was an elected county commissioner, I felt very strongly that the Met Council ought to be elected. Okay, you all shoot me. I felt that way because I did answer to community every single day. And I wanted to make certain that the people who were making those decisions were answering to community. I have a different perspective having come on to the Metropolitan Council. Should it become elected, so be it. It will be elected. Probably wouldn't have me, because I've been there, done that. But I do feel that the perspective I've developed now is how much the Metropolitan Council is accountable to our communities and especially to the electeds who really do register their voices, through a number of engagement processes that we have, through a number of bodies that are decision-making bodies on which they participate. And so I really do feel that where it's important, their voices are there, and we are beholden to those voices. In fact, so much so that our work is to try to align the many voices across the region that can sometimes agree and sometimes vehemently disagree with each other with a regional vision that is difficult to pursue with electeds. I've also been a part of elected bodies that decide transportation on behalf of the region in the past. Our county's transportation investment board, and of course everybody thinks Met Council does transportation, which we do, and so much more. Focusing on a regional vision, and with electeds coming to the table, trying to focus together on a regional vision without a regional agreement, I have seen as an unsuccessful formula. So I'm on both sides of the fence. You know, I believe that's why we haven't heard any construct right now of something that may emerge. It's because people have very much difficulty agreeing on how they will agree. So my experience here at the Metropolitan Council is that this is a table whereby we, having agreed upon aligned visions with our communities, are able to be accountable to those communities to make decisions based upon their decisions. And it's that primary vision that drives this work, with non-elected community members at the table together, listening very carefully to their communities, being driven by their communities, but knowing that there is a regional vision that we have to work out and decide based upon here at this table. So in the end, I have come to believe that what will be, and that we will function one way or the other. To date, it is as non-elected, and until electeds and, you know, those at the Capitol and in our communities can agree to change that, it won't change. So I'll be surprised as to what we might see within the next period of time. I'm sorry to take so much time pontificating.
Councilmember?
Yeah, I did, this is I'm not a member of the committee, so, you know, it's just like almost like an outsider's opinion, but I am a council member, and you know, when I applied for my position, one of the things that they asked me at the final interview was, how would you feel about this position being elected? And I said I really didn't care, because I'd be more than willing to run for office if I had to, because it's about what I came to do and who I represent, which are, like we all do, many people who traditionally haven't had a seat at the table, especially a diverse council that this is. We represent people that for generations didn't have a seat at the table. And so everything we do, we walk in the spirit of them. So I don't have any problems running for it. And I looked at the aspect of what happens when a person runs for office. Well, if we have a 4-year term, you're gonna spend a great deal, percentage of that term, campaigning. And who are gonna be the people that you're gonna be campaigning towards? Your big donors. And who are those big donors? Those are people probably who traditionally have gotten big contracts. And so you're gonna be beholden in some way, maybe more so than in the past, to the companies that have the money to make the donations, and that probably are in line at some point to benefit through contracts. Let's face it. So I think it's a cleaner process having an appointed system. And so, but I think if you wanted to do something, and if you had to have, you need to have maybe like a hybrid system. Like you took the best aspects of both, where you had allotted a certain amount of seats to be appointed and a certain amount to be elected. And so you had a mix, maybe you could stagger it or something like that. But you know, that would be my fear, that because we don't belong to the people with big bucks. We belong to everybody. And this is democracy. It's not an autocracy of the rich and powerful. And so that's always the clear and present danger. And that's why traditionally people of color and BIPOC people have not been at the table because, we were on the other side of that. We were the workers, in some cases, the free workers. And so this is equity. This is truly the time for equity, to try to make things will never be completely equitable because, there's always that disparity. But it's our job to make it more equitable. And I think the appointment, where does the appointment system come out of? It comes out of the old spoil system. Years ago, spoil system, if you won your office, you got to appoint people that supported you. And so that's what the governor's doing. He's appointing the people who share his vision. And we happen to have a Democratic governor. So it's more of a Democratic vision. But let's face it, at some point you could have a Republican governor, and it's going to be a more Republican vision. But that also evens things out in the turntable of politics. So, I hope things stay the way they are, but if they do change, I hope it change in a way that it's still, we're able to still have a balance, so that we maybe have more of a hybrid system. That's what I would be looking for.
Well, thank you. And I'm with your first part, is that I don't have a say in it, so I focus on the other things that I do have a say on. I mean, I started my day this morning at 8 o'clock having breakfast with the folks from Bloomington, the city leadership, the economic development director, and so they feel they have a voice. So it's not always the elected or even the appointed leadership. It's really a street level politics, especially when you're looking at a bus stop here or here. So I mean, I enjoy this work, but it's again, whether they go to appointed or not is not really my concern, to be honest with you. With that, why don't we move on here with our agenda and
I think I'll
yes.
just share one thought, and it's from a perspective solely of being a member of this committee. Over the years that I've been a member of this committee, I've seen our membership really concerned with the exercise of Met Council power, and often the lack of the exercise of Met Council power. So what I've seen is our members saying the Met Council needs to hold cities accountable for not allowing high-density housing. The Met Council needs to hold cities accountable for creating transportation plans that favor wealthy communities at the expense of less wealthy communities. And there's been a lot of frustration from the members of this body, of this committee, that the Met Council is not fully exercising its power. And some of the analysis that I've heard in this room has been that part of the exercise, the reason that there's an avoidance of that exercise of power is because Met Council members don't want to rock the boat too much with their legislative partners because they don't want to see this body become an elected body. So one of the things that I really appreciate hearing is the perspective of the council members in this room of there are pros and cons of both sides. In either case, you're beholden to someone. And that sometimes, even though it can be frustrating from an equity perspective to see the pace of change move so slowly, that in general, having the current council in place gives us confidence that it's at least moving in the right direction. So I do really appreciate the comments and want to kind of bring into the room the concept of how the Met Council exercises power is an important aspect of where we'll get in terms of equity.
Great, thank you. And that, not to move on too quickly either, but if you take last Wednesday, the full council met, and one of the items was the Equity Advisory Committee, and we had a debate somewhat similar to what you said, is what should we look at and how, and what is our responsibilities, and so because the Equity Advisory Committee is just one segment of the overall operations and equity across the entity. So, but thank you for bringing it up. With that, I think we'll move to our presentation for today. And we are pleased and more than happy to have the new general manager, Leslie Conderas, making the presentation. seen her at the bus stop.
It's that clicker from you up there.
Absolutely.
And I realize I don't have a mic. Can you hear me okay, or I can? Chairs, committee members, thank you for having me. As Councilmember Pacheco said, my name is Leslie Canderas, and I'm the General Manager of Metro Transit. I've been in this role since late July, so I'm still calling myself new, but that's wearing out probably. But appreciate the opportunity to be here. My main reason for being here is I wanted to update you on an internal process we're going through to develop a new vision, mission, and strategic framework to guide our work internally. And the reason I wanted to come to this group is because unlike how we've done our prior strategic plans at Metro Transit, this time we're reaching out outside of our division and seeking additional input from riders, other stakeholders, as well as our own employees. But before I get into that project that we're calling Metro Transit Forward, I wanted to just provide a little Metro Transit update. It's been a while since I've been here. I just thought I would share a little bit about what we're doing, what we're working on before jumping into the Metro Transit Forward project. So I'm sure this is mostly a reminder for you, but just to step back and think about what is Metro Transit. We provide bus, light rail, and commuter rail service in our region. We serve over 70 communities. In 2023, our average weekday ridership was 137,000. And that's even a little low because that's averaged over 2023. But as we went through the year and as we head into 2024, we continue to see ridership increase. And so it's probably a bit higher right now. But the bottom line is, we provide a lot of mobility. We're touching a lot of people's lives every day. And that's really what's guiding our work. I'll talk a little bit more about with Metro Transit Forward. Again, just a few highlights to give you a sense of some of what we're working on and focused on right now. I mentioned ridership already. When we look at our 2023 ridership, so our last full year ridership compared to the year before, 2022, we were up about 16%. When we look at where we are in terms of the first quarter of 2024, compared to 2023, we're rising still. So that's a good sign for us. We're not back to where ridership was before the pandemic, but we are glad to see it increase. We think a part of that is because over the last year, we've been able to bring back additional service, especially bus service. During the early days of the pandemic, we reduced service, and when we started to build it back as more and more ridership came back, along with many other employers, we were facing a really dire workforce shortage, particularly in our operations area. And so as we've been able to succeed in hiring and retaining more operators, that allows us to bring more service, which in turn allows more people the ability to ride with us. On the capital side of our work, we continue to work to build the Metro network. And looking ahead to next year, 2025, we anticipate opening 3 bus rapid transit lines. The Gold Line in March, the B Line in June, and the E Line in December. A lot of words on this slide, but the overall point here is really we have some other main priority work that we're addressing right now. The first bullet, Safety and Security Action Plan. This is a document that we developed a couple years back and came to the Equity Advisory Committee at that time. It was part of a broader project that Chair Zelli called for shortly after the murder of George Floyd in June of 2020. That started off the council doing a police review of the Metro Transit Police Department. The council contracted with the Citizens League and the Twin Cities Innovation Alliance to do community engagement. That process lasted about a year or so. And then the council developed a work group to take in that community engagement, look at what peers were doing, kind of supplement it with other information, and then direct staff to develop an action plan. And so the Safety and Security Action Plan is the plan that Metro Transit staff developed kind of based on that council guidance that was rooted in the engagement. And currently it's comprised of about 40 action items that are focused on improving conditions on the system, supporting and training our employees, and partnering with customers and other partners. And one of the highlights over the last year or so is a lot of our focus has been on increasing official presence on our system. About a year ago, our main layer of presence or security on our system was our police department. And we've really been focused on developing in the last several months is bringing on additional forms of non-sworn presence to our system. So our community service officers are more active and visible on the system. They began inspecting fares and issuing administrative citations in December. That was made possible due to a legislative change. Prior to last legislative session, it was a crime to ride without paying. It was a misdemeanor in state law. The council worked to get that change. We worked since 2019 to get that change. It happened last session. But that was important because not only did we feel a misdemeanor citation wasn't really commensurate with the violation that was happening, but it also meant practically that only sworn police officers were inspecting fares and writing citations. With that change, we've been able to have non-sworn personnel do that work. So that we started with those community service officers, and then this slide talks a little bit about the Transit Rider Investment Program agents, which is another group of personnel that are trained to do routine fare inspection, but are also trained to assist customers, provide transit information, connect people to resources and services, and just in general, hopefully improve that rider experience. Another layer of presence on the system is the Transit Service Intervention Project partners. Selena Martina, who's here tonight, is leading up this effort for Metro Transit. It was another piece of legislation last year that is specific to light rail, and it called on us to increase social service outreach and code of conduct in law enforcement on the light rail system. So right now we have 10 different community-based organizations under contract providing social service outreach and connecting people, again, to resources, services, and so forth. So that's been another layer of presence on our system. In addition to the official presence, we're working on establishing cleaning and repair standards for our facilities and vehicles, and also launching a Take Pride in Your Ride campaign. The last time I was in front of this committee was last July, and I was here with Pam Steffen, who's our manager of customer relations and experience, and we talked about the precursor to Take Pride in Your Ride, which was the council working to adopt a code of conduct for the transit system. And part of what we talked about with this committee is the importance of really keeping that positive and really being more about kind of calling on people to respect the shared space that is transit. And so we kind of carried some of that feedback we got from the conversation here to this Take Pride in Your Ride campaign, trying to share a positive message and encourage people to kind of respect each other as they're riding. So public safety is a big area of focus. Another big area of focus I touched on earlier is our workforce, just recognizing that especially across our frontline positions, transit is fundamentally driven by people. We need people to operate the vehicles, maintain the vehicles, clean our system, and so on. And so we recently established a task force across the Metro Transit Division to create a unified strategy to recruit, retain, and really grow and develop our employees. A big part of this is also organizational culture work, and we have a project underway called the Great Workplace Project that is really helping us think through opportunities and ways to improve the experience of working at Metro Transit. And then the final bullet here is related to Network Now, which is a project that we anticipate will be at a point we will want more public engagement. Okay, jumped ahead of myself. Yet this summer, and what Network Now is our kind of immediate plan to improve service through in the next few years, through about 2027. And the point is, as we are able to succeed in hiring and are able to bring additional service into our system, we want to engage with riders to understand how to prioritize that. And so work on this started about a year ago or so, and our service development team took in the initial engagement, and in the coming months, we'll be going back out to share kind of the first iteration of what that looks like. And before I get into Metro Transit Forward, I'll just mention too that especially since I've been general manager and I was interim general manager for a few months before then, one of the areas I'm personally focused on is making sure Metro Transit staff are visible in our system. A few ways we've been doing that is we created a new tradition we call Great Day in Transit on the third Wednesday of every month. So we're doing this tomorrow. We have staff sign up for shifts to be out on our system, to be present, to interact with customers. Sometimes we've had them do little surveys. Sometimes they're out there with resources or information. But the idea is to have Metro Transit staff on our system, riding, interacting not only with our riders, but with our frontline employees as well. In January, Chief Morales of our police department, Chair Zelli, Councilmember Barber, who chairs the council's transportation committee, the deputy general manager and chief operating officer for Metro Transit, Brian Funk, and I all did these light rail listening tours where we rode rail and kind of advertised where we were. Some people came out and found us, but for the most part, we were just interacting with people going about their daily lives and kind of interrupted them for a few minutes and talked to them about transit and especially their experience on light rail. So that was just another way to, again, try to connect with people and show that we're out there, we're visible, and we want to hear and listen from people's experiences. At the start of this year, I established a requirement for senior leadership to ride transit on a regular basis, and that's going to be wrapped up into people's performance reviews this year. So by senior leadership, we're defining this as assistant directors, executives. It was actually inspired out of a practice that was happening in our operations management area. But I've asked everyone to ride on average at least 4 times a month, and at the end of October, when we start the performance review season, we'll take a look at people's ridership, and if they haven't done that, it'll affect their performance review score. And the idea there is really those of us who are making decisions about priorities and allocating resources need to have some direct experience on the system. And not that that's the only input we should have. We should look at data. We should look at patterns and customer feedback. We should engage with people. But it's one more piece of informing our decision making. And then finally, as the new general manager, I've long taken transit, ridden transit, not just here, but in other communities I've lived in. But when I took on this role, I committed to riding every route we operate, so I get more of a sense of some of the routes I otherwise wouldn't have any reason to be on, and that's also been a great way to be visible, but more importantly, to really meet more customers and our own employees. So that kind of transitions into this project that we started last fall, shortly after I became general manager, that we're calling Metro Transit Forward. And what this is again, Metro Transit has long had a strategic plan internally that's kind of guided our work on an operational level. It's been linked to council policy, currently Thrive MSP 2040, the transportation policy plan, but it's really our internal guide to make sure staff are on the same page and where we're headed. So that's really the project that we're looking to revise or recreate, and we started that work last year. Part of what I wanted to make sure happened, though, is it wasn't just me or a small set of us putting something together and kind of pushing it out, but rather trying to create more of a co-creation process, especially within Metro Transit, so employees can feel ownership over the direction we're heading in. And the stage we're at now is we did kind of a round of that early engagement last fall and are coming back to our employees and to some extent publicly to see, are we hitting the mark? And that's part of why I wanted to come here today. It's just to be transparent about how we're thinking about our work within Metro Transit and certainly seek any input or thoughts or reactions you have. And one key point, and it's related to the third bullet here, is this is really kind of the ultimate deliverable of this work is probably going to be a 2-page document. We're not making a major plan. It's not something that goes to the council for approval. It'll have our vision statement, our mission statement, some key priorities, some guiding principles, and ideally it'll show how we're going to be measuring progress. But again, it's really meant to be a document that keeps us all on one page as a division with over, we're around 3,000 employees. But it's important because kind of in this framework we're creating, we're going to name a lot of work that is public policy work that will require public engagement, that will come through the council. And so there are linkages there, but that's a long way of saying there will be a lot of opportunities to engage, and hopefully as we get this framework together, projects such as Network Now, which is a big upcoming opportunity to help us shape our priorities, will become clear about where there are opportunities to shape our work. That makes sense, but. So the way we kicked off this project was first with a series of employee town halls. And one of the practices we've established over the last several months is we now quarterly go to all of our work sites. It's, in the ballpark of 15 different locations. We have staff working, there's somebody working 24/7 at Metro Transit. So we're spread out across space, across time. But part of how we're trying to improve communication internally is having regular town hall meetings. And so when we did our round of town hall meetings last fall, we asked our own employees some big picture questions to help people think more boldly. I think part of the context, and I should have said this on the last slide, but if we kind of step back, transit has weathered a lot of changes over the last several years. Certainly the pandemic disrupted and changed travel behavior. But additionally, last year's legislative session included a new sales tax for transportation. Some of that will come to Metro Transit, which means we have a more stable financial outlook than we have, certainly as long as I worked for this organization. And that should allow us to think ahead and think further into the future and think more boldly about our work. So it's, that's kind of some of the context that these internal conversations are occurring within. But at any rate, so last fall when we started this, we asked our employees kind of these big picture questions to try to get us thinking boldly. What is your ideal transit experience? What is a feature of an ideal workplace? Different steps we could take to those ideals. And some of what we heard from our own employees is an ideal transit experience is one that's safe, clean, reliable. It is relatively speedy or quick trip. On the ideal workplace front, we heard our employees say they want to be supported, they want better communication, they want flexibility, they want to feel respected, and they want to have opportunities to grow within the organization and receive professional development opportunities. And then last November, we did a few meetings that we invited riders and other interested community members to attend. We did a couple in-person meetings, one virtual meeting, and asked kind of similarly big picture questions about ideal transit experiences, what they think we're doing well and should continue doing, things that we should change. And we heard similar themes on this question of ideal transit experience. Safety, cleanliness, reliability all came up, as well as wanting more transit options, wanting transit to run more hours of the day, wanting more frequency, more trips, wanting new routes, and so forth. So again, just to give you a flavor, kind of what we're hearing when we're asking people about what their vision is really for a transit system. And so from that, the Metro Transit leadership team kind of took in this feedback we received, and we worked with a facilitator who has much more expertise in putting together vision and mission statements than we individually did. And through that, we came up with these two pretty high-level statements. Our working vision statement is connecting people, strengthening communities, improving lives. And our working vision or mission statement is Metro Transit delivers high-quality transportation for the communities we serve. So this is part of what we're sharing internally now to get people's reactions to. And then this slide is very much a work in progress, but as we're thinking about creating that 2-page document, we want to start identifying pillars that organize that, or strategic priorities, and kind of the 3 areas that are really emerging so far: employees, experience, service. And there's some examples on the slide of work that is either underway that we kind of wrap up into this, or work that we know is on the horizon. So, I keep coming back to the example of Network Now because it's just kind of on my mind as one of the upcoming opportunities where we'll go out into the public and seek feedback on what we did with the last round of feedback as it relates to prioritizing service improvements. But that's an example of something that's ongoing that will yet be kind of pulled into this framework and ideally help us advance our priorities and mission. And kind of another piece of this, and I'll just say we're still kind of working out how this all fits together. But in our prior strategic plan, we had some core elements and goals in that work that we've done a lot of work on and want to continue to thread through our work in our next iteration of our plan, or at least the strategic framework. And those include equity, sustainability, communications and engagement, performance measurement, continuous improvement, and financial stewardship. And so that's kind of a quick version of just, again, sharing with you this internal process we're doing to give you some sight into how we're thinking about our work within the Metro Transit Division right now. I realize I have a different version of these slides where I have a disclaimer on this one that I should have had here about the council is undergoing their work, or starting their work on Imagine 2050, the Regional Development Guide. When we developed our Stronger, Better strategic plan, Thrive was still in place, still is in place. And we were thoughtful about understanding, again, like what the council's adopted regional goals, core principles are, and how we kind of, again, operationalize that within our internal document. So we'll be doing that same work in some way here as well with Imagine 2050 as that takes shape. So again, kind of a work in progress, but just wanted to put that marker out there that we're not trying to be disconnected from the really critical visionary work that the council is doing through the Imagine 2050 process. So, thanks. So I threw some questions on here. You can jump at some of these or not, but just, again, appreciate the opportunity to be here and would take any thoughts, feedback, questions, concerns you may have for me. So, thank you.
Councilor.
Thank you. You know what, I just really have to say, I appreciate the work that you have been doing as general manager and the oomph with which you've jumped into this work and have really led our transit team to be visible, energetic, enthusiastic, positive, you know, and most of all, visible. I have been on some of the great days in transit, and I take transit, probably not enough, but you'll know how much now because I have a card that works.
Yes.
You know?
Good.
I didn't have a card, I could strike before, but thank you for the card. I really love what you're doing, and the description of the work that you're doing, which does not seem at all disconnected from the Regional Development Guide. It just seems as though this is the process of work that leads to those kinds of bigger and better plans. So I think it's all the right work. I love the categories that you showed that will end up being those strategic priorities. And in particular, I'm struck today by how well you communicate with the fact that communication and engagement is a very big priority for you. It is a huge opportunity, not only for Metro Transit, but for transit overall. And I think for our community. We have people, lots of people together, you know, regularly on our transit system. And so I just really love seeing those two words together as a strategic priority and look forward to seeing how you blend in opportunities to give information, to get information, you know, to create an environment that inspires people engaging together, you know, gathering on our buses, and, you know, our trains even, in our system is entirely a possibility. And what can become of our opportunities to share information like our openings, you know, and making certain that people who ride our buses can become our employees and creating that kind of inflow and of course outflow for information. So it just strikes me here, you know, you're wrapping our trains and that makes sense, but there's even more art that can happen on transit. And I look forward to seeing how we are able to inspire the visual art that should be more part of our presence, because presence is more than police officers. It's more than trip agents, it's more than TSIP. It is creating a sense of how art changes people.
Yeah.
And using that in our environment. So I'm rattling to give feedback based on what you've inspired, through your presentation. And through this sense that communications and engagement in our transit system can happen in our transit system. And we may see a change, gradual indeed, but a change in the manner in which people interact based on the kind of environment that we provide. Of course, I want to see recruiters on the trains. I'm not kidding,
No,
okay? I'm not kidding. There's a way to think through that.
Yeah.
So, I'll shut up.
Cheers, Councilmember. I'll just, on the recruiter piece, I smiled because as we've been out and about on Great Day of Transit, as I've been riding, as I'm doing all the routes, one of the most frequent questions I get is how can we work for you? So we started carrying with us a card that will take people to metrotransit.org/jobs or, to get that word out. So you're spot on that it's a very rich recruiting environment, but just generally thank you for all that feedback.
Well, thanks for thinking of all the positives, and I look forward, I wrote down more, so I'll have to send you that.
Good, please.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, I just wanted to say I appreciate how you tied the senior leadership with the writing 4 times a month. I think that's wisdom, and I think it shows that you're serious. And then also I wanted to talk about the safety. How do you feel about the transit program that you have, the transit safety intervention plan? Has it been effective? What's going on with that?
Great question. And would it be okay if I asked Selena to come up? I mean, I can answer that, but she's the one really leading this work, and so, okay.
I was taking notes.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that question since we have the leader in the room. I want her to answer.
Thank you, Mrs. Chairs, committee member, Selena Martina, Metro Transit Senior Manager of Equity and Inclusion, and I also coordinate the Transit Service Intervention Project. So a little bit about the Transit Service Intervention Project. I know Leslie shared a little bit with you, but that was included in last legislative session in the omnibus bill as a project, as a pilot project for 1 year on the blue line and the green line. So it's only on a light rail, and that encompasses adding presence and supporting doing outreach engagement and intervention services. So we have 10 vendors and they do different services on our system. Some are direct service providers and some of them are more outreach and engagement, and they also support our code of conduct and just provide that added layer of presence. It's going really well. It was I would not say slow start, but we had to get the contracts together and have go through the necessary procurement processes, selection of the 10 contracts. We had about 39 applicants for those 10 contracts. So it was a really great process to select those that had the capacity and the ability to provide the services that were included in that bill, which is to intervene on mental health, housing, and homelessness, and substance abuse or substance use. So we trained and also I keep forgetting because I partner with the police, So I always talk about my part, but this is it's a combined project with the Metro Transit Police Department. So the HAT team and Sergeant Rodriguez is really, my key partner in ensuring that we have the HAT team available not only for the 10 organizations as we coordinate services, but also, to coordinate other presence and details and patrolling on our system. So that, that goes hand in hand. So we have 10 active organizations. They provide data on a monthly basis about, the number of contacts they have, and also the types of referrals. So we are asking them to give us numbers about, who they contact, how they check on, the welfare of our riders. But also, if that leads into a referral for whether it's a mental health screening or health benefits, or sometimes it is a housing. We work with our housing HRA and through the HAT team to make sure that, we provide available vouchers for those that are ready to be housed. So it's really comprehensive. We're monitoring and tracking every month, providing monthly reports to the legislature. And we are approaching the last month of TCIP as a pilot project, so we'll be preparing a final evaluation and assessment about the impacts, the perception of TCIP. So we are working with our strategic initiatives to do that in our final months. But we know that although TCIP as a pilot will come to an end as it is in the legislature, we know that, Metro Transit is committed to continue to look at those layers of presence in the system. And based on the findings of TCIP and the final evaluation, we'll be more ready to say, what's coming next. So, but yeah, any particular question? I tried to cover a lot of the TCIP, but if you have any questions.
No, I was just interested in, and you answered it about the data. So monthly,
Yes.
you're tracking that. Okay.
Yes, and chairs and committee members, the reports are public reports. They are loaded in the, I believe, House Transportation and the Senate Transportation Committee. So I can send you the link so you can access those and see what is being reported. So we report not only those data points, but also some of the crime data and the police activity on a light rail. We also report on, we got $2 million in appropriation funds for this project. So we report on, how we're doing in terms of spending that money. So it's a comprehensive monthly report that we provide. So yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Question. Where do you see the Equity Advisory Committee in the work that you're doing, and what role would you expect us to play going forward?
That's a great question, and I don't want to turn your question back on you, but I certainly think as we are bringing forward work through this framework, that Network Now project, behind that project is an update to our arterial bus rapid transit plan. Its predecessor, Network Next, was something that we engaged with this committee on when developing that a few years back. The Safety Security Action Plan is about 2 years old now, so we're in the process of talking about what it looks like to really assess where we've been on that. Much like with the Transit Service Intervention Project, we're providing monthly updates to the legislature. We provide quarterly updates to the Metropolitan Council on our Safety and Security Action Plan progress. But it just feels, to me, at the 2-year mark, there should be an opportunity to maybe look at that more deeply than only the quarterly update. So I think that's a long way of saying, certainly as we know what this committee's interest is in, more than happy to keep bringing information here, especially if it's something that's going to go to the full council for action. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but.
No, and then we're thinking about the same
Yeah.
thing, is that how are we going forward? We're
Yeah.
reconstructing the committee as it. I think we'll have an update on that in a minute here, because this is potentially a 21 member body, and so very, having a possibility of having a subcommittee just on transit.
Yeah.
So you have a ongoing monthly meeting, and not once and then 3 quarters from now go to another one. So there's other major items that we could be looking at or weighing in on with these other standing committees that we have. Because what we find too is that, and I've seen this in most bodies that go in, they want to have something to do. They want to be able to
Right.
have the value, otherwise why would they come to these meetings? And so having to rush everything in one meeting or not, but there's some ongoing quarterly kind of reports we do for federal government and for others that can be embedded in these kind of, in these committee structures and stuff, so. Yes.
I don't know if somebody else is waiting to speak.
Well, I just want to say that typically, I was gonna bring this up next time, but typically, I mean, I worked as a diversity program director for St. Paul, Minneapolis, for MnDOT Metro. And the first thing we did was develop a 5-year plan for the whole organization. The 5-year plan for equity should be coming out of this committee. And that, once you develop that plan, it's gonna tell you what you need to do. And then the accountability that you built into that plan should be accountable, it should be a top-down accountability. And once you've done that, everything is gonna drive itself. You know, you have to build the car first, and then it'll take you where you need to go.
Councilmember.
Thank you. Thank you. Also, I very, very much appreciate the chair's question and suggestion that there could be a more regular opportunity for members of this committee, once reconstituted, restructured, to participate with transit on a regular basis. And I think that would be very good. I also agree that we need to be sure in the organization, not just in EAC, but in our Metropolitan Council organization overall, that we have a linked plan for equity. We certainly talk about it a lot, and it shows up in all of our plans and in all of our areas. I think there is something that can happen that is much better when we are linked together in the work that we are doing. So we are looking so very forward to understanding how the organization perceives the work for equity across all of our divisions, and so that we all know how it's linked together. This is a perfect place for that perspective to come together, along with members of our community and council people who are here focused on equity. There really seems to be no better place for that work to come together. So we've got structuring to do, and I know that the senior team here is looking at engagement with equity across the organization and trying to figure out how our work plan engages the entire organization, so that we see that linkage very, very clearly, and can be advocates and communicators in our community. I see all of the work that is happening in the Regional Development Guide as a high potential for being screened in this setting. And the work plan, in fact, that is being put together and worked out now across the divisions also is preparing this place to engage in that way. So I'm hoping that that is on your radar as you're planning to incorporate the work together across our organization in that way, in this space, I think is a huge and very, very positive opportunity. The partnership, with a community of people coming together for that purpose, I think is a very positive thing for our organization to lean into. I am looking forward to how we continue to iterate that. The other thing is there are two things on my mind, and I hope you have space for both of them, and perhaps some preliminary responses. The first one, which is very large, and I believe General Manager, thank you. I believe that the General Manager has been participating in the conversations or has had someone at the table with Minneapolis Uber Lyft And, you know, I think that that's a space where we should be at the table. I don't know if it's you or if it's someone that works for you, if it's someone from the other side, transportation, Charles's area. But I'd like to know, and if you could speak to that very briefly, how we see ourselves in that conversation. Short term, long term. You know, there's some things that have to happen short term. There are also some visions that we have to have long term. And I wonder if you could speak briefly to how we see ourselves in that.
Yeah, Chairs, Councilmember Carter. Yeah, it's a great question, and I would say it does involve both Metro Transit and Metropolitan Transportation Services and Metro Mobility. But from a Metro Transit perspective, for one, we're thinking about this moment as an opportunity to promote transit and let people know we're out there. We're looking at the material we put out into the world about how to ride, how to start riding with us, how to plan a trip, how to buy a fare, ways to enroll in our transit assistance program, to receive discounted fares. So I mean, we're looking at just opportunities to promote transit, but certainly recognizing public transit is a critical part of our mobility infrastructure in this region, and just, I think, it's not a really definitive answer for you in the moment, but certainly something that we are thinking about and thinking about how to communicate to more people about.
I think that's fantastic. And are you at the table or is it Charles that's in transportation services?
I mean, I've been included in a meeting, but I believe Executive Director Carlson may be more directly involved on some specifics related to Metro Mobility, but yeah, we can.
And I'll ask questions of him in that regard too, and thank you for taking advantage of that opportunity to promote. And the second question, should I hold?
No, go ahead, we've got some time.
We're okay? Okay, the second question is regarding state of good repair.
Okay.
And I do appreciate that there is a focus on making certain that our transit system is neat and orderly, cleaned regularly, and feels good to all of us who ride transit. I am noting that there are some great improvements that we have the opportunities to make. And I wonder if, because I also think that this is a community engagement thing, you know, we're trying to talk to people about adopting stations. Of course, that makes sense. But that's not all. As we clean more, you know, we have more of a regular routine. I wonder if we are thinking of, and if we should not be sure to think of, what opportunities we might be able to provide for some of the young people, you know, who are hanging around and, you know, maybe could use a part-time job to do some scrubbing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I could use a much cleaner Western Avenue station. And, you know, there might be some young people who could qualify to do more cleaning for us. I think when we see people cleaning, we think, oh, that's really good. And I'd like to see more people cleaning more often. And I know budgets are not endless, but I wonder if we could seed some thought around how it might be a vehicle for us to create some visibility of young people doing positive things that help our transit system. Okay.
I think I really like that idea, and in general, one of the elements of last year's transportation omnibus included requiring us to establish cleaning and repair standards. And we're really looking at how we can do more? And so I think any creative idea, any new way of looking at it, during the council's last quarter budget amendment, we did add several positions towards that work. So it's really about building the capacity and looking for ways we can improve, because we absolutely need to improve on that front. And it ties back to the public safety conversation too. When we do community engagement around safety, it's not just it's that experience of your environment that also sends signals to people about the space they're in. And so cleanliness and just keeping things in a state of good repair is an important component of that work too.
So I can bring in some ideas.
What?
So I can bring you some.
Yeah, no, please, please,
Okay.
I was very open.
General Manager,
Oh, yeah,
can I,
please. Yeah.
so chairs, committee members, and Councilmember Carter, I just wanted to say that also, as Leslie presented on the Take Pride in Your Right campaign, so that campaign is very intentional about sharing again or re-educating or sharing the new adopted code of conduct. So about what you can do on transit, what you're not really allowed to do, what is really illegal to do. So we are launching a different code of conduct points within this campaign, and one that is coming up soon is the loitering and just keeping our transit clean and safe. So you will see a lot of social media announcements. You'll see more people out and taking really making our facility workers who work really hard to maintain our facilities and on the clock. So you'll see more actions of how you can do that, how you use the trash bins available, what do you pick up, how if you are a stop adopter, a shelter adopter, how you can continue to keep that clean. Of course, taking all the necessary measures to, you're not going to pick up something that is hazardous or things like that, but we are really launching this marketing campaign with that focus of keep your transit, clean. So, yeah.
Yes.
Like the others, I really want to applaud this effort. I think both the process that you've designed for input and the results so far are really positive. I too really like the both the increasing presence on transit's efforts, the Great Day in Transit, and the expectation of the management team to be on transit. As a former researcher, I can see that could have this additional benefit of when you're interpreting something like community input around speed, for example, well, what does that really mean? Are you meaning express bus service? Are you meaning signal timing so you can go through the lights quicker? So it just helps to have that direct experience so you're interpreting that input more effectively. I have one suggestion to make, but I don't know all the input that went into getting to this, but for the mission, I wonder if you wanna put the community first. So instead saying Metro Transit delivers this, instead you could say Metro Transit serves our communities with transportation they consider to be high quality. So it's just elevating the community focus.
Well, I will tell you that my mother and father never drove a car, so we had used public transit often. And I thought it was kind of fun when I first got on the bus, because we used to give a ride. And I took my daughters there, and I thought my little one, she didn't treat it like a big deal. It's come on, we're going to take the bus downtown. And so I think there's, you gotta have that conversation, and I think and there was a few spots that were tough. But we'll go back and forth. My daughter this morning got up, so she takes the public bus to school. So, except for when it's too cold, then she makes me give her a ride. But I see a few more families lately, and where you can tell, the family came and sat up there, and that's a good sign to me, that people are feeling safe and the family's feeling safe. And so, anyway, I think things are going a lot better, actually. Yes.
I'd just like to say, I really like the listening sessions, and that, because, that's, to me, that's the Nelson Mandela principle. You have to listen first, or you can act, and you're acting out of knowledge instead of what's in your head. So I'm hoping in the future, and I know there've been some effort that we're gonna include more council members.
Yeah.
And it'd be great if we can include, it'd be great if we had included a equity committee listening day, or maybe once a month, or whatever our schedules allow. It doesn't have to be all of us, but just because just the fact, okay, we're gonna have some members from the equity committee, that speaks a message to the people out there that, yeah, we have your back, and now we're here to listen to you, and you know, change starts with reassurance. So if I feel like you're listening to me, I'm reassured. You don't have to come up with the brilliant idea that changes my whole life. The fact that you saw me as a person that day, that means something.
I think we missed an opportunity along that same line with, we had the State of the Region. And we, you know, I thought about before we could invite members of the advisory as well, because that was open to the public and it was actually, it was a great presentation, I thought, and people were engaged there. So I have to look through the calendar and see where there's other opportunities like that as well.
Yeah.
We have some, if there are questions, we have a couple announcements and I don't know who's making them.
Can I just, on
Yes.
this point, once again, and I know you've already thanked them, but to say, we greatly appreciate your being
Yes.
here.
Thank you.
And the discussion that we've had, you know, has provided us with an opportunity to share thoughts. You know, we are asking that our notes capture what has been shared, and we will be thoughtful about the opportunity to hear back at some later point in time from you in a designed way. You know, what may have resulted from this conversation, how you may have incorporated things that have been shared or maybe not, and what opportunities exist for the EAC, for example, to participate in listening, to help translate thoughts from community. I think all of the things that you've heard are the ways in which we want to be involved. And so we'll try to circle back and make sure that we are having that two-way.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Grab a piece of pizza on your way out to it. You probably take a box.
Break your diet. This is break your
All right,
diet.
well, I'll just announce a few things. And one, we kind of mentioned here that we are in the process of recruiting new advisory members. I had sat through about 8 of the interviews and I was very, very impressed. They had, like I said, 20-some members and other people saw it. Our goal was to have them have the candidates voted on by the 19th and then bring them on board around May 2021. But I thought there was a good balance. Some of you two could speak to it as well. A good balance of the people that we had. There's some history and equity, but also just some day-to-day lives background. And so it's not, I thought it was actually very good. The next is that we'll be recruiting for a co-chair member. And if anyone's interested, please reach out to Lila and Tori. Now, these are annual seats. It's myself, and so it's what's that?
What do you mean we're recruiting our co-chair? Where are our co-chairs going?
Their terms.
our term. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can still be nominated, can't you?
What's that?
There are terms, I understand. And so I'm glad that we're looking forward to to voting in new co-chairs. And just very wanting to know if in fact we have the opportunity to recruit from those who are here with us.
Right, that's where the names will go there. We've got, again, a whole group of people. There's some existing members just aren't here today, but they are existing members. They're not part of the new crew that we're trying to engage. And so we'll send that notice out to everyone as well. All right. Actually, that concludes our agenda for today. We have a lot of time to step out in the rain. So if there's any other, yes.
Yeah, did we talk about the presentation before the council? Did I miss it? Did we mention the presentation? I know you talked
No.
about having been at the presentation last week that occurred before the council. Did I miss our discussion of how it went, or is there any
No, we
report
didn't have
back
that.
on that?
We could have that now. We have time.
We can update it now. Yeah, absolutely. I don't have a microphone, so I will talk loud so members of the public can. Thank you very much. Yes, so we presented last week at the Committee of the Whole on the Equity Advisory Committee annual update. We provided a summary of some of the amazing work that has come out of this committee, the impact, and the importance of having the Equity Advisory Committee. We also talked about some of our challenges, and we were very open and honest. And there was a lot of really great support that came out of the council. Multiple council members were interested in hearing more and helping us really embed the EAC into the overall work of the organization. And we will actually send out a recording of the presentation and the whole meeting to all of the members of the EAC.
Tony or
Anyone have
Dr.
any
Carter,
questions?
anyone add anything? It was a good discussion, I felt. It was started out discussion just about EAC, but it also then got bigger and talked about it across the board where equity could go. And I think that was, that was very helpful.
I would just say, to add on to that, there is a very supportive council for the meetings that happen here, for the participation of community members, and for a organization-wide perspective on equity, for linking these things together. And the work to do that, has to happen. I want to say thank you to this team for the work plan that they have forwarded. And I know that we're filling that out with dates and prayerfully seeing that then again very, very soon, so that we'll know how the work is proceeding through the year.
Yes, co-chairs, Councilmember Carter, we are actually, what I've told Tori is this is now our work plan. And so we are working on getting everyone on the calendar. We're working on also understanding the work that they're doing so that we can start to insert EAC in the areas where feedback should be given. So we're gonna be working that out, and we'll come back to the committee and present on that. I also appreciate the conversation about overall equity. I think that EAC is not supported by us by accident. We're the folks who do enterprise equity, and so we will definitely be looking into planning out what an enterprise equity plan, that's actually one of the buckets on the work plan. What enterprise equity looks like, how we link everyone. There's great work happening across the organization, but how do we link it all together so that we're actually making impact in the region, measurable impact in the region. So we're excited for that, and we're excited for the support as well.
Dr. Carter?
I'm hoping that in the end, the answer is gonna be measurable and accountable. Because with no accountability and no authority behind it, then it's a waste of time. This is an extension of the civil rights movement. You're walking in that spirit, and you have to.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again. This was very helpful, and we'll continue the discussion, and we'll be back here with a new crew, not so distant future. And we'll just talk a little bit more about how these subcommittees can be organized and which one would be a priority. With that, we have extra time again. Thank you.
Miss you.
Thank you.
Be safe in the rain, everybody.
I'm going back to